I started this video way back when Alice Origin first came out, and then realized it was terrible, so I started over. Then I realized the recording was terrible, and started again, and now here I am, half drunk the day after Christmas, retyping and recording a Fuji list, because I guess I hate myself, but whatever, Fuji time. Based on a Chinese creation god, Fuji is one of the clunkiest of the new Valhalla rulers. At least to me he is. He's split between multiple generic archetypes, namely humans and dragons, but never received the proper support to make any of them really worthwhile. It seems like he was built to be kind of a slower mid-rangey deck rather than the turn 3 or 4 touch of death previous fire decks were known for. What this really meant was that he was horrendously slow and his ability to keep up in pace with the likes of, say, Keurig was lacking. Top that off with plenty of hate cards across all of Wind directly aimed at fire, and Fuji's combo-centric nature made him nigh unplayable. However, this is 2020, where green is now gone. At least until the end of February. Honestly though, I think Fuji has some of the strongest cards in the game, ignoring 98% of the cards he was given before Decisive Battle. He has 2 cards that generate items, entities that cannot be interacted with or removed, and then from those items he can gain a massive damage increase, and end of turn draw, a board wipe at the start of both players' main phases, and an instant speed rest everything that can easily be searched or drawn into now with all the tutoring options Red has been given since Alice Origin 1. Ideally, Fuji wants to play around his 3 personal staples, Genshi Tensan, Lord of Vermilion, and Lady Huang. Genshi is a 3-cost red-blue that generates either a Dragon Emblem Fire or Water Emblem when he enters, or does both if your J/ruler is Fuji. After that, he increases the damage of fire sources you control by 400 points while you control a fire emblem, and gives you a free draw at the end of your turn while you control a water emblem. These effects do stack while you have multiple Genshi out, so in a perfect world I guess you could kill your opponent off 2 thunders by striking them for 2100 damage each. This guy is definitely a staple though, since he's the only way you can generate fire and water emblems, which everything else needs to function. Next is Lord of Vermilion, a 4-cost 12/12 flyer that creates a Dragon Emblem Vermilion when he enters as long as you already control a fire and water emblem. While on the field, he prevents all damage from fire sources you control to other entities you control, and instead adds that damage as an attack and defense buff until the end of the turn. While you control a Vermilion emblem, he does 800 damage to all J resonators at the start of either player's main phases. With Genshi out, this is pretty much a board wipe at the start of each turn, and potentially gives your board game-ending stats. In fact, that's exactly what happens if both him and Genshi survive a full turn. While his stats are amazing for a 4-cost, he's not nearly as important as Genshi, since he relies on the former to hit his full potential. You can easily get away with this guy at 2 or 3 since there's so many ways to search him out once you know when you need him. Okay, the last of the staples is Lady Huang, a 6/6 2-cost that gains Quick Cast while you control a fire emblem, and gains an enter ability that forcibly rests all J resonators your opponent controls while you have a water emblem. And finally, if you have a Vermilion emblem, she gains an extra 400 attack and defense, as well as swiftness. As if Genshi and Vermilion being able to swing for game on their own was enough, here's Huang to make sure they get through. I honestly think Huang is one of the best cards in the game. She just happens to be stuck to such an awkward mechanic that previously made it hard for her to do anything. Even if you can only land a Genshi, she gains immediate value as a 2-cost rest everything response that can ruin your opponent's defense, offense, or setup. Player at the end of your opponent's turn to halt all of their blocks. Player at the start of their combat declaration to immediately halt their offense, and player at the end of the recovery step to make any flip J-ruler borderline useless as they can't call a stone or attack. In the Fuji builds I'm showing today, Huang is the focus and should be the main playmaker for any game you end up in. There are 2 more Decisive Battle Fuji cards, but I don't really like them. Tiny Fire and Water Dragon is Fuji's Will Fixer, and he also looks like a Digimon. Agumon! This guy is arguably one of the weaker, if not the weakest, of all the fixers. His extra utility is all built around getting your Dragon Emblems, meaning he's basically a vanilla resonator until about turn 3 or 4. For comparison, Minor gives Isis fuel by banishing itself for a Moon Edition, Fallen Angel is a self-tutor and resourceless kill spell, and Dark Alice is actually 3 Will Fixers in a trench coat because I can't fathom why you would give this much utility to a goddamn 1-drop. Fuji's God rune is Wrath of the Flame God, a 4-cost non-quick cast fire rune that reduces its cost by 1 fire if you control Genshi, and then by an additional 1 fire for each different type of dragon emblem you control. Okay, so this is a non-quick cast removal option that starts out at 4, but is dependent on you having a specific resonator that has no real form of protection that can then reduce this card's cost to something manageable. Just run Bloody Break instead. It can't hit additions like Wrath of the Flame God, but instant speed removal is way more important than thinking you'll actually get a chance to play Wrath at a reduced cost. Okay, so I've got 2 lists here. The first is more focused on using Fuji within his actual color. It mixes Lancelot and Huang with the rest of his toolbox to set up one big swing after resting all of your opponent's stuff. Since the deck heavily relies on Darkness to play Altar or Flame King to get Genshi out, it also runs a 1-of Tiny Dragon that you can easily search out should you somehow only hit fire sources for your first 3 turns. Whenever Hearth's Core is given a reprint, you could easily slip those in over 4 of the basic Firestones, and it will make the whole deck run a lot smoother. For the time being, though, you really don't have that many options. The second deck is your standard Altar Darkness shenanigans, but swaps out DBV Athena and support for Fuji's emblem cards. This deck is nowhere near reliant on red and mostly uses Fuji for his Master Rune, which will let him play just about whatever he wants by turn 3 or so, depending on how much setup time you have with Lila. In reality, the emblem cards aren't needed, but where's the fun in just using him as a replacement for Lich? Ultimately, I think Fuji has a lot of room to grow, but giving him access to Guinevere and Ruckegg really helps him out. He does lack a lot of the overkill of the more popular New Valhalla rulers, but you're not bringing a butter knife to a gunfight anymore when you choose to play him. As I said before, whenever Hearth's Core is reprinted, he'll get a nice consistency boost, but even now you can make some decent shenanigans with his brand of support, assuming you can get his emblem gimmick going.